And they put me up at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. And there was a man there, a patient, who was a Baptist preacher. And he comes into my talk and he goes, I'm missing church for this. This better be good. I love when there's no pressure, right? Because even though he was the minister, he was still able to watch his own church online. But he said, I'm missing church for this. This better be good. And I didn't have it on PowerPoint then, and I thought, okay. And so what I did is I said, yes, preacher. I said, because it was Sunday, I said, I am going to tell you a talk right now. And I changed it. I said, these are the 10 commandments. Chef AJ's 10 commandments. And I delivered the whole talk like this. I'm not going to do the whole talk like this for you. I said, for overcoming the disease. I said, you know, I was lost. I was wandering. I was overweight. I was obese. And I was wandering in this desert of self-pity and wallow. And then I climbed up the mountain in Santa Rosa, California. And I met Dr. Goldhammer. And he handed me these commandments. And then so I started doing that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he was smiling, and I didn't do the whole talk like that. But I said, but you know, preacher, I said, when you think about it, the actual 10 commandments were really nothing more than a set of rules to instruct people how to live and how to behave in society. And I think that my 10 commandments are a pretty good set of rules to instruct people that are overweight or trying to lose weight or suffering from food addiction how to behave to help overcome both of these diseases. So here we go. I am going to do these in order from 10 to 1 because I want to save the first and most important one for last. But the 10th commandment is thou shalt eat simply. You know, there's something called sensory-specific satiety. Has anybody ever heard of that concept? I interviewed Dr. Barbara Rolls about that on my teleclass. You know, the more choices you allow yourself per meal, the more likely you are to overeat. Now, I've always said that variety is the kiss of death for the food addict. But Heather, from our Biggest Winners panel, likes to say variety is the spice of obesity, because it's really true. The simpler you eat, the easier this is going to be to lose weight and to maintain it. It truly is. You know, think about it. If you've ever gone to a buffet style or smorgasbord style restaurant like Soup Plantation or Hometown Buffet, the more choices that are available, the more you're going to overeat, because of the phenomenon known as sensory-specific satiety. When I interviewed Dr. Rolls, she talked about how when she went to a 14-course dinner in Italy, all pasta, and even though every course was different type of pasta, different sauce, by the 8th or 9th course, they were pretty sick of pasta, and they were full. And then after the 14th course, there was a course that was brought out that wasn't on the menu, and it was some rich chocolate Italian dessert. And even though they were sick, they all ate it. And that's what happens to us at Thanksgiving, isn't it? We could be so full from whatever we ate, but you bring out the pumpkin pie and all of a sudden your stomach finds room for it. So the simpler you eat, the easier it's going to be. You know, I learned this actually at True North in 2011, the first year that I attended the cooking extravaganza as a guest chef. And one of the instructors made a meal that we love in UWL called the stuffed potato meal, Charles's favorite meal. He even can make it himself. You take a sweet potato or a potato and you stuff it with corn and beans, kind of like our lunch yesterday. And it's delicious, filling, maybe 350 calories. And so she made this, we ate it, we loved it. And Lori said, anybody like another one? We said, oh no, we're too full. She goes in the kitchen and brings out a carrot cake. She goes, who would like a piece? And all 40 hands went up. So again, the fewer, and it doesn't mean that you have to eat the same thing every day, although that actually, believe it or not, is a good strategy. I did it for 8.5 months when I was sick. And I think it's kind of amazing sometimes doing these kind of elimination diets, because as Dr. Carey said yesterday, there's 18,000 different kinds of legumes. You can change the bean, the grain, the sauce, or the type of potato. But the thing is that the fewer choices you allow yourself, the less likely you are to overeat. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So for me, what that usually looks like is lunch is sweet potatoes and broccoli, or some kind of starch and a veggie. And dinner would be a soup, a stew, a chili over some kind of grain, and maybe fruit for dessert. So thou shalt eat simply. That's the 10th commandment. The 9th commandment is thou shalt not embellish thy chemicals with food. And the chemicals we're referring to specifically are sugar, oil, and salt, which is what I learned at True North. But I've expanded a little bit to sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, and salt. SOFAs. Remember, if you want to get healthy, get off your sofas. And the reason is these are not foods. These are chemicals that we add to the food. They don't exist in nature, at least not in any concentrated form, and they cause us to exponentially overeat. For many of us, these are also trigger foods. Now, if you ever come to my class in Los Angeles, I spend a whole hour actually talking about why these aren't healthy. And many of you know this from watching Forks Over Knives or reading Dr. Esselson's book, what we talked about a little bit yesterday, why oil is so deleterious to your health. But even if they were healthy, if you're overweight, if you're suffering from food addiction, these are not your friends because they cause you to overeat. Sugar and flour, they're not foods, they're powders. And anytime you eat a powder, you're basically eating something that's in a more drug-like form than in a food-like form. Plus the fact, as we discussed yesterday, just based on their caloric density of 1,500 to 1,800 calories a pound, you're not going to lose weight eating them, at least not in any measurable amount. And the same thing with alcohol, which is 7 calories per gram, or oil, which is 9 calories per gram. So just from a weight loss standpoint, they're deplorable, but from the food addiction standpoint, it's even worse. And we're going to talk about salt a little bit separately because salt has no calories, but the other 4 things, the sugar, the oil, the alcohol, the flour, again, highly processed foods, don't exist in nature. There's no fiber, there's no water, phytochemicals, antioxidants, and micronutrients. But the problem is they cause you to overeat, not just based on their caloric density, but because of their drug-like properties. Now, salt has no calories, but we're finding out more and more bad news about it as far as it being a trigger food, causing you something like to eat 11% more calories, especially calories from fat, especially if you're a woman. So it's just not your friend. And unfortunately, all spices do that. Now, I'm not telling you to eat plain food. I'm not telling you that at all. But if you're somebody that's really suffering, do what Jeanette does, plain and sane. Because when you don't season your food, you will eat less food. And people say, well, it doesn't taste good. And I'm like, great, then you won't eat as much. When people say, well, I don't like vegetables breakfast, I'm like, good, then you're not going to eat as much. The truth is, though, you won't like it at first, but you will learn to love it. And the more simply you eat, the less highly seasoned, you will really learn to love the taste and appreciate the taste of whole natural foods. I didn't know this until I interviewed one of the other True North doctors, Dr. Erwin Linsner, but even spices that aren't salt, spices that have no calories, you will eat more. And I'm not saying I don't season my food. I sometimes use 4 drops of the Brew Brew Brothers salt-free hot sauce, but anytime you season your food, even with healthy herbs and spices, you will eat more. So I'm not telling you not to season your food, I'm telling you just to be aware of that. And so those of you that really need that heightened stimulation, if you're not struggling, knock yourself out, put the whole bottle of hot sauce on. But if you're somebody that's suffering and struggling to lose the last few pounds or to get back on track, the plainer you go, the easier it'll be. And if it is hard for you to get to that point where simple foods taste good, we actually have a place in Santa Rosa where we can lock you up and feed you nothing, give you water, and at the end of the fast, I promise you, steamed zucchini will taste like a hot fudge sundae. It happens to everyone. So thou shalt not embellish thy food with chemicals. And that makes sense to you. So, I should have asked you before, and it's not too late since you have notebooks. What obstacles have you guys experienced with weight loss? And actually I should have started with that. Take the time now to write down in your book. You don't have to share it, but what are the obstacles that you guys have experienced? Make a list, circle the one that's the most, and hopefully I'll cover it in this talk. And if I didn't, come to me because it might be something I want to add or at least help you with. So the 8th commandment is thou shalt not eat at night. Now, we talk about this all the time on the UWL boards. And the thing is, guys, when you eat at night, you know you're not eating for hunger and survival. And the problem is unless you have plans to run a midnight marathon, any calories you eat at night are going to be stored as fat because there's no chance for you to burn it. Now, I know a lot of people think, well, no, it's just calories in and calories out. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter. They've done research at Northwestern University that proves that even if you are within your caloric budget, any calories eaten after dinner are going to be stored as fat. It's just the way it is. Our ancestors didn't eat at night. There is no reason to, well, there is a reason to eat at night, which we'll discuss on the next commandment. But I'm telling you, sometimes if people just stop that night eating, there was a question yesterday to the panel, well, what should I eat at night? Nothing. That's the answer. The problem is when you eat at night, it's just you don't get deep sleep. And one of the problems with weight loss is people aren't sleeping enough. And when you don't wake up feeling refreshed, you tend to look for stimulants like coffee and sugar. So when you stop that night eating, you sleep better, you wake up feeling more refreshed. Many people suffer from all different kinds of gastrointestinal disturbances, especially GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, which even my husband Charles used to have. When you stop eating at night, that sometimes goes away completely. So many people have alleviated that and gotten off their medication when they stopped eating at night. Now, every doctor I've interviewed said you need at least 3 hours, but preferably 5 from that last swallow of food till you lay down. So when you stop eating at night, it makes it so much easier to sleep better, to lose weight. You'll really be surprised, but we're going to talk in a second why so many people do it, because it is a hard habit to break. A lot of people do well all day, but then they end up sometimes, if they're binging, or they'll eat more calories from dinner to bedtime. And why do they do it? Well, possibly from the next commandment, number 7, thou shalt not eat emotionally. Any calories you eat after dinner are emotional eating. And if hunger isn't the problem, food isn't the solution. We eat for myriad reasons other than hunger and survival. We eat because we're angry, because we're bored, because we're anxious or depressed or lonely or stressed. A lot of times, like Dr. Goldhammer said yesterday, we're eating because we're tired. And that eating will wake us up and stimulate us to do more work or get more done when we actually really need to go to bed. Now, it's really difficult to tell people that have been emotional eaters, especially their whole life, just stop. And so what I do is I refer them to people like John Pierre, Doug Lyle, that can work with them, or even somebody else if you want to work with them on the why of what is eating them. Because really my expertise is what you're eating. I can really help you get the food right. But pretty much if you're eating after dinner, you're eating for emotional reasons. And so how you deal with that, well, we help you do the best we can in the group and in Mastery. One of the things that helped me was doing a very simple online program that costs less than $40. It's the Shrink Yourself program with Dr. Roger Gould. It doesn't make any mention of food. It's nothing about diet or what kind of food you eat. It works on the emotions. It's been proven to be actually as effective as in-person therapy. It's very affordable. I did the program twice, and it really helped me, because even though I was slender, I didn't like that feeling of being out of control and like, it's 10 o'clock. Why am I eating 5 bananas? This makes no sense. Well, I know why I was doing it now, because I was trying to stay awake and get more work done. And I used to go on planes, and I'm like, well, why am I eating this burrito at 9 in the morning? Well, it's because I was anxious, because I hate to fly. And that program really helped me identify what my triggers for emotional eating were. He also has a book by the same name, Shrink Yourself. And it teaches you some strategies, actually. He has, for free, he has something called the Hunger Pocket Coach, which you can put on your phone. And so if you feel like you're going to slip or relapse and you're not doing what we tell you to do, which is that's the exact time to reach out on the boards for support, or if you're in Mastery, to text myself or John Pierre. It has a series of questions you can ask yourself to create what's known as the pause, because often if you can just create a little bit of time between that urge and that compulsion to eat something and not, it will often go away, because cravings are fluid, they're not static. And if you don't indulge them, they will go away. As a matter of fact, the only way they can continue and perpetuate is if you indulge them. And so some of the things I've learned are things like, I have it on my refrigerator when I have a feeling to eat outside of hunger, is why do I want to eat this right now? How will this make me feel? And how can I solve that problem without food? And then I answer these questions. And sometimes you'll still go ahead and eat it, but if you can learn to just create that little pause, it can really help you not eat emotionally. But this is a big problem for a lot of people with the emotional eating. And you know how you know if you're emotionally eating? By what you're choosing to eat. Because if it's 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night and you are starving for some steamed kale, I'd say probably eat it. But if it's got to be kale chips, probably not. If you can eat a plain baked potato, you're probably hungry. But if it has to be potato chips or French fries, you're probably not. Because the thing is, guys, true hunger can be alleviated by eating any food. But emotional hunger, food addiction, can only be alleviated by eating particular foods. And that's kind of how you know if you're eating emotionally or you're eating for hunger and survival, by the type of food you choose. All right. The 6th commandment, thou shalt, this is a thou shalt exercise. I love Garfield. I used to exercise, but I'm fine now. Well, you don't have to raise your hand, but just kind of make a note to yourself. How many people here that are really struggling with the program and that are still not at the weight they'd like to be truly exercise every day? If you want to raise your hand and let me know, you can. But my guess is a lot of people aren't doing this at all. They're not making this commitment to exercise. Now, JP said something yesterday about exercise that I have also heard Dr. Lyle say, which is about that we don't exercise to lose weight. We don't. Because the truth is I lost 47 of these 50 pounds with no exercise, because when I started the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, I had a broken knee, I was in a wheelchair, and I really couldn't exercise really for a long time. But if you want to maintain your weight loss, you're going to have to start exercising. That's been proven. But what I didn't know then, which I wish I knew and I know now, is that that's not the reason we exercise. Now, exercise is important for many reasons. It's important for bone health and brain health and cardiovascular health. It improves things like anxiety and depression. As a matter of fact, it's the most underutilized antidepressant in the whole world. But it really does increase your self-esteem, and that's why you do it. Like Dr. Lyle talked about in his lecture yesterday about that internal audience. You see, you can eat pretty good all day. Most people on any program can white knuckle it and do their thing, and then they get home at night and the emotions set in and it's nighttime and it's quiet, and then they can blow the whole day with a 2,000 calorie binge. But you can't undo exercise. When you exercise, especially first thing in the morning, you can't take that away. You can't un-exercise. And the thing is, it gets the attention of your internal audience, the people that live inside you, not real people, hopefully, but that matter. And it says, hey, you know what? Maybe she is serious. Maybe she is doing this. The thing is, it increases endorphins. It makes you feel good. And the thing is if you've heard some of Dr. Lyle's talks, he talks about, especially in female, the #1 predictor of self-esteem is their weight. And while if you have 100 pounds to lose, it's not going to happen overnight, but we can still increase your self-esteem by exercising. And I love it when I take a yoga class, and I'm telling you, there's a woman in there that probably weighs 400 pounds, and I'm like, yes, because that is going to make such a difference. If you're somebody, especially that's struggling, I mean, the thing is once you exercise, you become a maniac like Kristen Bummer, and you can't stop. I mean, and Laura, that's the thing. I don't believe that we ever necessarily overcome our addictions. We often just kind of trade one for another. And the thing is when you start, once you get bitten by that bug, you'll want to do it. Because when you do it, especially first thing in the morning, not only does it raise your self-esteem, but it raises your ability to stick with a healthy eating program. So you don't have to like it, but you do have to do it. Some of you know the story. We were doing the Ultimate Weight Loss Program in person, John Pierre and I, in 2012, and I was telling everybody to eat vegetables for breakfast, and he was telling them to exercise, and he says, well, when are you going to start exercising? I'm like, I don't like exercising. And he goes, do you know how ridiculous you sound? He goes, you're telling people that if they don't like vegetables, just to be an adult and do it, that they don't have to like it. So what was I going to do? I mean, I was basically forced to exercise. He was the guy that, if you know his story, that he used to meet me at the hiking trails, and I would spread out a blanket with my 2 dogs. He said, I thought you told me you go to the hiking trails every day. I go, yeah, I go. I don't hike, I go. But I realized he called me on my own, crap, because what I say to people, the people that won't eat vegetables, I say, just eat the vegetable you hate the least. And so that's what I did with exercise, because trust me, I didn't exercise for 52 years. And now when I can't do it, it's like a punishment. And I didn't like exercise. And I remember going to yoga, because that was the exercise I hated the least. I signed up for 2 weeks at Black Dog Yoga for $20 unlimited. And I made the commitment that for 2 weeks, I was going to go to every class, even if I had to leave in 5 minutes if I didn't like it, to test out the modalities and the teachers. And I found 2 kinds of yoga that I actually liked, that people can do almost regardless of their weight or ability. One was called yin and one was called restorative. And some of you know that I'm like, you might have seen me, like I can do the splits now, and people go, you're so flexible. Well, ask my teacher Heidi how I used to cry with the blocks built up. So you don't have to like it, you just have to do it. And I promise you, if you do it, your life will change. Those exercisers out here, do you agree with what I'm saying? Yes. It really, and that's one of the things I really respect about Shada, is that even when she was obese, she always exercised. And when people say, well, how do you have your body like that when you've lost over 100 pounds? Well, because she always exercised. So it really does make a difference. And the truth is yeah, it may put a couple pounds on you building that muscle, but you will look so much leaner. So anything that I or John Pierre can do to inspire you to exercise, it will make such a difference. Okay. The next commandment is thou shalt not make excuses or build exceptions. Now, they're a little bit different, excuses or exceptions, but here's the thing. You're either committed to the results or the excuses. You can't be committed to both. And I really do believe that this is difficult, and we all have reasons why it's so hard, but excuses are really just, they're really just that. They're just a rationalization or justification for doing something or not doing something you really don't want to do in the first place. And I have found that when people really stop making excuses, they really start doing the program. Because the truth is there really anybody that's an alcoholic that really wants to stop drinking? I mean, seriously, or a smoker that wants to stop smoking? No. They're always going to do it someday. You know how, like, you know people in your life that will say that, oh yeah, I know, I'm going to do it someday. Well, they do that because they want to save face. They want to, not have their status lowered because of the fact they know they have a problem, and so they make excuses. And I'm telling you that when you stop making excuses and, like, I hate to use the cliche from Nike, just do it, you will do it, but you need to stop making excuses. And if you wait for that magical day to start, it's never going to, my mom, morbidly obese, died of complications of obesity. She was always going to start her diet, after some event, because it was always too stressful. When after this happened, the road to someday leads to never. This is now. You've been to this conference, and what we're really hoping is that this will inspire you to keep going if you're already there, and to start again if you have relapsed, and if you haven't even done it, to start. And then what we provide is the support to help you do that. Exceptions are a little bit different than excuses. So I attend an improvisational comedy show many times on Thursday nights called The Groundlings that I've gone to for 30 years. And so they have my credit card on file. I go about once a month. And in February, I was taking Brian Wendell, the producer of Forks Over Knives, and his girlfriend. There was 4 of us going to the show. And Brian and I had just gotten over a cold. We had coughs. And I know that they don't give a refund. They have a big sign, no refunds, no exceptions. And I called them up and I said, look, I understand your policy, but 2 of us have coughs. We'll come, but we're afraid we're going to disturb the actors. And Nadine, the manager, said, I will grant you a one-time ability to go to another show. This is a one-time exception. So when you do something once in 30 years, it's an exception. But when you do it every day, it's not an exception. When you follow the program, but drink your Diet Coke every day, that's not an exception. When you have to have your weekly glass of wine, that's not an exception. When you follow the program, except for when you're at restaurants or other people's houses, that's not an exception. That's a habit. The problem is, like excuses, exceptions do not yield results. They don't work. And I found if you really want to stop making exceptions, you have to do with what I believe Tammy said on the panel yesterday, is make certain things non-negotiable. You see, willpower is only required when you have to make a decision. You don't need willpower to decide to not do something you don't do. Like, I don't kick puppies. I don't ever have to, like, if I see a puppy, like, oh, should I kick it? Should I kick it? I know that's a bad, I know JP is like, why did you use that analogy? But the point I'm trying to make is, to me, sugar, flour, alcohol, these aren't foods, these are poisons, just like rat poison or cocaine. So I don't have to think, should I eat it? No, because it's a non-negotiable. And the reason it's very hard for a lot of people to stick to the program is they don't understand the concept, or maybe they understand the concept of abstinence, but they're not willing to embrace it. But let me tell you something, when you do, it's bliss. We have a saying, a bracelet. Aaron here has that bracelet. Abstinence is bliss. 100% compliance is easier than 99% compliance. And when you finally draw that line in the sand and make certain things non-negotiables and no longer make exceptions, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to, just like, anyway, it's amazing how your life will change when you stop making exceptions. Because the exceptions, unfortunately, are the reason that many of you are not able to follow the program, because that little bit of salt, that little bit of sugar, that little bit of flour, that just keeps the addiction alive and it keeps the cravings raging. So think about not making exceptions, or just try it for 3 weeks. So this, I can't read Roman numerals, is that 4? Okay, the 4th commandment is thou shalt not engage with enablers. Surround yourself with like-minded people. One of the reasons we're all so happy this weekend is because we're with our tribe. We're with people that get us, they eat like us. I mean, so many, yeah, exactly, because so many of us have nobody except for the group. I mean, some of you live in places like Kansas, I think, is that somewhere in the United States? Because I was going around the tables last night saying, where would you like a conference? And people were saying, New York, Chicago, and they said Kansas. And I'm like, not gonna happen. I'm just teasing. But the point is this is why these conferences matter and this group matters so much, because What an enabler is. Oh, I forgot my phone. I wish I could run to my room. I'll bring it up later, what I wanted to show you. But what an enabler is it's somebody that allows an addict to continue with their self-destructive behavior. Anyone ever see a show called My 600-Pound Life? It's my skinny husband's favorite show. He's obsessed with that show. And let me tell you something, it's an appetite suppressant, because we always seem to watch it during dinner. Not trying to be mean or disrespectful, but the thing is what's interesting about this show is these individuals who weigh usually between 600 and 800 pounds, many of them are bedridden, have been bedridden for 2 years. Now, how could somebody at that weight that is in bed be 800 pounds unless somebody was bringing them food? This is an enabler. And the thing is enablers are often very covert. They could be your 4'10", 90-year-old bespectacled gray-haired granny who says, "But darling, I made it just for you." What do you mean you can't eat it? One bite won't hurt. It won't hurt? Well, it's not going to help. And as a matter of fact, one bite will hurt. You know why? Because if you're an addict, you know that the first bite is the only bite that you can say no to. After that, the disease takes over. As you know, one bite is too many, 1,000 bites is never enough. You know, it's interesting because with alcoholism, if you guys know somebody that's an alcoholic, would anyone go up to somebody that they knew was an alcoholic and say, "I made this margarita just for you"? What do you mean you can't take a sip? One sip won't hurt. But unfortunately with food, they don't get it and they do this. And that's why I'm so honored that the gentlemen that are here to support their wives that maybe don't understand this disease or don't need to lose weight. I'm so honored that you are here so that you can maybe understand a little bit more about this. Yeah, let's hear it for those guys. And you know who you are? One of us from Kansas. Thank you so much. You know, Tony Robbins has a really great quote, and he says, "The quality of your life is a direct reflection of your peer group. And if your peer group doesn't expect much, it's just a matter of time until you lower your expectations of yourself." It's one of my favorite quotes, and it's true. And that's where so many people struggle, fail, relapse, is because of the company they keep. Now, I'm not saying that you can't see your family ever. I'm not saying you can't be friends with the people, but the thing is if you are going to keep these people in your life and not willing to disengage from them, you're going to have to at least talk to them and tell them that their behavior is not acceptable. That's one of the only ways I think this will work. Or create a new tribe like we have here of like-minded people. But it is so easy to get sucked into what everybody else is doing. It's very, very difficult for most people to stand up to the social pressure of this. And you know, like Tammy said, they had to lose some friends. But you know, truthfully, if somebody doesn't want to be your friend, like because you eat differently, were they your friend in the first place? You know, I had this guy, I'm not gonna say his name in case he's watching, but when I stopped eating processed food, he goes, "You want to go to this vegan pizza restaurant?" I said, "I can't either." And he goes, "Well, I can't be friends with you." So I'm thinking, well, I guess we weren't really that good friends, right? So get a tribe and love them hard, like they say. The third commandment is thou shalt not eliminate starch. So here's the thing. You know, people that don't know the program, they'll sometimes on certain groups bash the program thinking that this is a vegetable-based program because we ask you to eat at least 2 pounds of non-starchy vegetables a day, 1 pound raw, 1 pound cooked, and to eat vegetables for breakfast. But this program is exactly the same as the McDougall program for maximum weight loss, at least the dietary style, the health promoting diet True North, which is a starch-based program, which means the majority of your calories need to come from starch, at least 75%, maybe 80%. And while if you understand the talk I gave yesterday about calorie density, that the volume of calories may come from fruits and vegetables, the volume, not the amount, the volume comes from fruits and vegetables, the majority of the calories have to come from starch. No starch, no satiety. It is these complex, unrefined carbohydrates like potatoes, rice, beans, and winter squashes that are going to satisfy your hunger drive, because starch is to the hunger drive what oxygen is to the breathing drive. You have to have both, and you have to have them in sufficient quantity. Now, I know that sometimes you've heard us talk about these fruit and vegetable days, which is a rather advanced technique that we do in Mastery with certain people. Now, with people that have a history of binging or anorexia, this is probably the one point that maybe JP and I disagree on a little bit about these days, they work for the people they work for. I tried it once, hated it, but I wanted to do it because everybody else was doing it. You know? So the thing is you have to have enough starch. And one of the problems, and I think Dr. Lyle might even be talking about this today, or I've heard him talk about it before, is especially people that binge. These are always people that are afraid of starch, that limit starch. Because fruits and vegetables, they're calorie dilute, they're nutrient rich, and they're wonderful to eat. But you will starve if that's all you eat. And I remember when I met Heather on the cruise, I was like, I ate some rice, girl, you know, I was like, I was just getting worried about you. Because, I mean, I know she wanted to lose weight, she wanted to lose it quickly, but this is not how you do it. This is the biggest problem with UWL, is it is not a fast fix. It is not a fast weight loss program. If you want to do that, you can go to any of those weighing and measuring programs, pay $1,000, and you will lose weight quickly. But it's not going to be sustainable, and so many people end up with binge eating disorders from that because we eat enough food, but we don't lose weight quickly. As I said, it took me 27 months to lose these 50 pounds. I was losing as little as a quarter pound a week, but who cares? If you didn't become overweight overnight, why do you expect to become slender overnight? I mean, look how long it took Heather and Shada. If you're in for a quick fix, this is probably not the right program for you. But whatever program you do, this is why I'm so against the weighing and measuring programs, is because they tell you, they vilify starch. They tell you not to eat starch, or the ones that do tell you to eat 4 ounces a day. 4 ounces a day? I eat 4 pounds a day, and I'm thin. So please do not eliminate starch. I mean, if starch was so bad, how did Andrew Spudford Taylor, who's 120 pounds, reverse his depression and food addiction in 1 year eating just potatoes? How did Chris Boyd, the head of the Washington Potato Commission, lose 30 pounds eating nothing but potatoes, and he ate them with cheese and oil for 6 months and still reverse his high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and high blood pressure? How did the couple that were in the KON potato study, who ate nothing but potatoes for a year, who were athletic and had to actually eat oil to get enough calories, how in 1 year did they have no weight change and no nutritional deficiencies? This is where we have a gratitude of debt to Dr. McDougall in his work. Please, potatoes make you thin. So do what my bracelet says, carve them, and then there's an adjective off. Please, this is so important, and people just don't understand this. And I didn't either, and that's why I'm working with Dr. Lyle. I mean, when I told the story in my lecture from Fat Vegan to Skinny Bitch, every time I added more rice, potatoes, and beans, I lost more weight. So don't be afraid of starch. It's your friend, and it will make you thin and happy. All the good brain things. So commandment number 2 is thou shalt eat vegetables for breakfast. This is the oven roasted ratatouille. Oh, can I go backwards? Okay, so this is where Ultimate Weight Loss is different from any other program out there, is because we start our day in a savory way. We talked a lot about developing taste preferences for what you habitually eat. You don't have to like it. Look, show what you have, Heather. So Heather has, what, 2 pounds right there?
It's 1 pound.
So Heather's got her breakfast there. And people say, oh, it's so much. Really? I don't know if the camera, I don't know if you can get this, Morpheus, but I haven't eaten my breakfast yet. This is 2 pounds of steamed zucchini that I made in the pressure cooker that one of you are going to win. Guys, this is not that much food. This is 134 calories, 2 pounds. You really tell me this is like 2 cups of food? People think it's such an extraordinary amount. When you eat it raw, maybe it is. But it is not that much food. And people like, oh, I can't eat it, I get so full. Well, that's good if you get full. But the thing is it is not that much food. I mean, my God, you can eat a pound of M&Ms. You're telling me you can't eat a pound of vegetables? So again, it's really a mindset. But the one thing that most people that don't join UWL, the reason they don't join is because they don't like this. And as you heard from all 6 biggest winners yesterday, this is what is going to make you a biggest winner and a superstar. And the thing is you don't have to like it, you just have to do it. But guess what? When you do it, you'll like it. And then when you can't get vegetables for breakfast, you're gonna start freaking out because you actually miss them. So you gotta trust me on this. Do it for 21 days, whether you like it or not. Your life will change. And you don't have to eat plain steamed zucchini. It's because I'm here. We put Benson's table tasty on it. It'll be delicious, or one of the vinegars. But we have extraordinary recipes like for balsamic Dijon glazed Brussels sprouts. We can't actually make vegetables taste good. But the truth is now where I am in my life, because I'm eating to live instead of living to eat. I just don't care. I just want to get enough calories. I've got so many more important things to do than worry about food. And that's what goes back to the 10th commandment, eat simply. I really don't care what I eat. I mean, as long as it's to the left of the red line. And I'll tell you guys, if you could just feel the way we feel in our brain from the freedom of food addiction, the weight loss was a result of dealing with the food addiction. But if you could know what it feels like to be free in your brain and to not have cravings and have a calm state of brain, you would eat this way no matter what. Can I get an amen for this? Hallelujah. All right. The last and perhaps most important commandment is thou shalt sanitize thy environment. People that get mad at me on the boards get mad at me because a lot of times they'll post that they've had a slip or a relapse, and we don't say the words, we don't get into detail about the gooey, the things we're eating when we relapse, but they'll make a post and say, I ate XYZ, I had a slip, I had a relapse. And so I'll post, where did you get it? And I think with maybe one exception in the past 6 years, it's always in your house. I know you're tired of hearing me say this, but Jeanette, we almost need bracelets like this, t-shirts. If it's in your house, it's in your mouth. That is a given. It is not a question of if you will eat it, only when. You cannot eat something that's not there, and there is no willpower required to not eat something that's not there. And this is where maybe we have to offer, Charles, maybe we should offer, like, you should teach us class for spouses, because it usually is the man, sometimes it's the woman not supporting the man, but this is the problem. Well, my family won't support me, my husband won't eat this way. And we tell you what Dr. Lyle said in the Mastering the Environment webinar, that's fine, they can eat what they want, but they have to eat it outside the house. If you are struggling, you talk to Sharon McCrae if it's a family thing, but we get back to thou shalt not engage with enablers. I am not saying that you won't succeed if you have an unclean environment. But what I am saying is that everybody that was on the Biggest Winners panel, everybody that I've met that has succeeded has a clean environment. And I will say that I have not yet met one person with an unclean environment that has gotten down to their slim ideal weight and is not struggling to fight those cravings. Because here's the thing, people will say something to the effect of, oh, well, I'm vegan, and so my husband has non-vegan ice cream and non-vegan pizza in the freezer, so that doesn't tempt me. That's not true, because this is an environmental disease, and you're triggered by cues in the environment. So you go in there to get your frozen broccoli, you see pizza and ice cream, and your brain says, you know what, they make vegan pizza, and they make vegan ice cream. And so you start having cravings. You actually start secreting dopamine, like my hearing right here will tell you, just having that stuff in the house. Or people say, oh, well, but he's got vanilla ice cream. Chocolate's my favorite flavor. You think if you have a bad day at work that your food addicted brain cares where it gets the dopamine? Do you think it really cares that it's the wrong flavor? If it's in your house, it's in your mouth. It's not a question of if you will eat it, only when. And until you believe me on this, your life won't change. And I'm always happy to talk to spouses to explain this to them. And I remember talking to one spouse, and I said, he just didn't want to do it. And I said, if he gave me $500, I said, if I gave you $1,000, would you keep a clean environment for your wife for a month? He goes, hey, I'd do it for $500. The thing is there is always a way to negotiate this. And so either on some level, you don't have the self-esteem to feel that you deserve to have yourself supported, or maybe you're just such a bad addict that you use that as an excuse that, well, he won't support me, so then we get to have the treats in the house. But you guys really have to believe this about this. The environment is going to always be the #1 predictor of your success. Yeah, I'm going to stop in just a second. One of the things I did forget to say, though, is when we talked about exercise and backtracking, because this is huge, and we actually probably should have had more fitness with JP to talk about this. Exercise is one of the only ways that they have proven to rewire the brain to help people overcome addiction. And it actually, if you started early enough in life, it actually can prevent somebody from getting an addiction. And that's what the research shows. And so that's absolutely huge. And that's another reason to exercise. And I was going really fast, and I'm sure I forgot some parts of this talk. So hopefully Charles will let me re-record it maybe I'll do better. I mean, it's not like I suck, right? But, but I know I've forgotten a few points here and there, which I'm sure that I will catch up. So, again, if this is what your refrigerator looks like, I think we have a problem. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's a bunch of bad stuff. So bottom line is, I really believe, and I think hopefully you believe it now by meeting some of these extraordinary people that you're meeting, that you can have both the health and the body you so richly deserve. And it's a pleasure, a privilege, and honor meeting every one of you. Thank you so much for being here, and I love you, and thank you.